Now, your forecast first. Sponsored by Sam Lehman of Morton, the #1 Ram truck dealer in Central Illinois.
Good evening. I'm your local weather authority, Chief Meteorologist Chris Yates. A few clouds now. We'll be looking at some rain showers moving in a little later. Currently 80 degrees in Peoria. A wonderful view on the Jones Tree Surgery camera. Temperatures region-wide, rather warm for this time of year, but this is not going to last much longer, so enjoy it while it's here. We've got temps in the 70s and 80s. Day planner through tomorrow. Isolated morning showers, cloudy with spotty showers continuing throughout the day, but you'll notice it's a little cooler tomorrow. Trending much cooler by the end of the work week. We'll have that forecast coming up. WYZZ News at 9:30 starts now.
Tonight at 9:30, protecting the White House whistleblower, why lawmakers fear the president is endangering the key witness in the impeachment inquiry. And stop the screen time and pick up a paperback. A scientific study takes a deeper dive into children's books. Thank you for joining us. I'm Kimberly Eaton. Illinois State University leaders confirming reports of a 5th case of sexual misconduct on the campus in less than a month. Manash Kongwari explains how they are taking immediate action to try and break that trend. Manash.
Well, Kimberly, on Friday, a 5th student went to police as a survivor of sexual assault on campus. Now, the report shows alcohol was involved, but officials are reminding everyone that consent given while under the influence is illegal. I spoke to university staff today about what students can do to learn more about the fine lines of consent.
One of the things that, students that are coming in have online courses that they take, online training about consent and respect.
The course teaches dating violence, sexual assault, and consent within relationships. ISU spokesman Eric Jomey says while 5 cases is a high number in a short period of time, he believes more survivors now feel safe telling their story.
With that kind of education and the encouragement that we give, we certainly do hope that people are comfortable coming forward and that they know that there are confidential ways that they can go about this.
In addition to online courses and counseling, the school is offering seminars for students. They just finished a series of SAFE classes, which teach students what they need to know to protect themselves.
The students feel a little more empowered. Hopefully they have a little more sense of control over their environment and knowing that they can say no.
Even with the seminars, the courses, and the counselors providing the help students need, ISU Police Chief Aaron Woodruff says unless parents are doing their part, this trend may continue.
As long as we have some of the issues we have in society, and as long as we have children that are being raised and where consent isn't being discussed at home before they come to college campus, then we're going to continue dealing with these issues.
And the university police are starting a new series soon called RAD, which stands for Rape, Aggression, Defense. You can head over to our website, ciproud.com, to see when those classes are. In the Twin Cities newsroom, I'm Manash Kongwari. Kimberly.
Manash, thank you. A popular young employee at Bloomington's Pizza Ranch remembered tonight. 18-year-old Reginald Hubert died yesterday, days after an SUV hit him while he was walking along Veterans Parkway. The Hubert family held a vigil to honor the teenager last night. Co-workers and friends say they are still in shock.
We were all just at McDonald's the day before, just all together. Found out, it was him because my friend made a status, and my heart just dropped. He hadn't even been working here that long, and everybody just grew a liking to him. I don't even, I still don't know.
Pizza Ranch managers say they plan to close the business the day of his funeral to give his co-workers and friends the opportunity to attend. They also say they're doing what they can for the Hubert family. Well, pressure building in the Capitol tonight as the Senate Intelligence Committee fears for the safety of the whistleblower at the center of the impeachment inquiry. Bree Jackson explains why they think President Trump is putting that person in danger.
And the president's absolute abuse of this process.
Senate Intelligence Co-Chair Mark Warner says President Trump is putting the whistleblower in danger.
Where he basically threatened the whistleblower and anyone the whistleblower talked to, calling them out as the most spies or traitors.
Warner's concerns come as the president seems to be stepping up his efforts to discredit the person.
When you have a whistleblower that reports things that were incorrect.
I'm very afraid that in the future, whistleblowers will watch how this case played out.
Irving McCullough is with the Government Accountability Project.
See that the commander-in-chief is urging retaliation against people like them and will essentially choose to remain silent.
Federal law protects whistleblowers from retaliation, such as losing security clearance or being fired. The law also allows whistleblowers to remain anonymous unless it's an unavoidable part of an investigation.
Essentially, Congress does have a right to hear from this whistleblower, as does the American public and does the president.
McCullough says in this case, the whistleblower's testimony could be key to the House impeachment inquiry. Warner says Congress wants to get to the bottom of the complaint.
We'll get to the other issues in terms of what happened with the president in Ukraine, but this action in terms of undermining the integrity of the folks in the intelligence community should not stand.
Warner is urging intelligence officials to make protecting the whistleblower's identity and safety a top priority. In Washington, Bree Jackson.
And our local lawmakers watching Washington tonight. Congressman Rodney Davis says there is nothing on White House transcripts to indicate the president did anything criminal. He calls the whistleblower an anonymous secondhand tip. He says to lend credibility to his or her allegations, the whistleblower should testify publicly.
If you are so sure that your anonymous tip, an anonymously sourced secondhand tip, is correct, then you know what? Come out. Show us who you are. Let the accused face them in court, and that's what the president deserves in this case, too.
Democrat Sherry Bustos on the other side of the argument. She says the transcript in which the president asked Ukraine's leader to look into dealings by former Vice President Joe Biden and his son is a red flag.
The goal here is to get to the truth, and I think the best way I would explain it is we have a transcript in the president's own words that literally defiles our democracy in exchange for a foreign leader helping the president in the 2020 election.
The whistleblower report bases some allegations on information reportedly passed on from other administration officials. The White House since releasing a partial transcript of the July phone call in question. Well, convenience or connection? New research shows print books may be better for a child's development. Nasia McDonald explains why a study says it is time to put away the tablet when it comes to reading time with your kids.
Reading to your child has many great benefits, from inspiring imagination to cultivating a love for books. And now with tablets, you can have thousands of options at your fingertips. But a new study says it may not be the best to incorporate tablets into reading time with children.
Absolutely think that working with a print book is so much better for kids. They're sitting with their parent, there's a social interaction there, there's a fine motor development that happens from kids just turning the pages in the book.
According to the journal JAMA Pediatrics, parents who read to their children from tablets have less overall interaction with them.
It also helps with their imagination. They can look at pictures and they can imagine the story, versus a lot of the ebooks have a video almost going with them, and so they don't have to think of for themselves or do their own imagination.
The study goes on to say toddlers are less likely to listen when being read to from an ebook.
I've seen the changes in development as far as kids are used to immediate gratification these days with screen time, less attention span, I would say.
While not all screen time is negative, Smith says time limits based on age and content need to be set when it comes to screen time. And the moms I spoke with today agree.
Unfortunately, when you hand them a screen, oftentimes they just want to go look at it themselves. They want to lie on their back and have it up ahead above their faces. And it's so much of a temptation to move from that to YouTube, to the apps that they play with.
That's one of the benefits I think any parent can see if they sit down and they're reading a book with their child. The interaction is between parent and child. You get to know them and you get to sit with them and encourage them and give them a high five when they do a good job, which is something that I don't think happens on an iPad program.
And Dr. Smith recommends no screen time during meals. That goes for both parents and kids. She also says try to turn off the technology within an hour of bed.
Well, another warm summer-like day in central Illinois, and officially, at least as of our latest observations, Peoria fell just a degree shy of an all-time record high of 89 degrees. That was originally set back in 1937. Well, things are cooling off now, and we might have to say goodbye to the 80s. We'll have your full forecast